You're driving down a lonely desert road when a chill fills your car. A shadow flickers in your rearview mirror. Locals whisper it's the Chindi, a spirit that follows the living. But why do stories of stone-skinned giants and wendigos still haunt police reports and eyewitness accounts, even as modern tech tries to erase them? What makes these legends so dangerous that even AI is forbidden to speak their names? Let's discover what native legends have crossed the line from just an old story into reality. Beneath a velvet desert sky, where the wind hums with secrets, the fire's glow flickers on ancient stone. You settle in to listen, just as generations have before you. Among the Navajo, it's said that when a person passes, not all of them moves on. Their sorrow and anger, all that was never healed, lingers as a Chindi, restless invisible spirit that drifts through moonlit canyons and abandoned hogans, searching for warmth to cling onto. As the embers crackle softly and shadows dance, you sense the world thinning. Some say a qualipek, an elusive guardian, whose footsteps are never heard, wanders these same trails, watching over travelers and keeping the Chindi at bay. The old ones never spoke the names of the dead for fear of calling the Chindi back, and always left a door open for spirits to pass through. For in this space between worlds, stories are both shield and invitation, reminding you that even in darkness, you are never alone. These aren't just stories meant to scare you. Far from it. They're rich, complex tapestries woven with care into the heart of daily life, morality, and, for many, reality itself. When you listen closely, you realize these stories are more than entertainment. They're lessons, warnings, and guides, shaping the very edges of what people believed was possible. We're about to wander into the shadows and meet some of the most awe-inspiring, mysterious, and yes, downright terrifying beings to ever haunt North American folklore.
Just say monsters. Nobody's grading your essay.
Words matter a lot. Calling something a monster just feels a little harsh and misses all the complex and chilling stories behind these legends. It's way more interesting to explore them as mysterious beings shaped by culture and imagination.
Get on with it, will you? The viewers want scary stories, not a history lesson.
Context is not a history lesson. It's the framework required for proper storytelling. These stories are a strong belief for Native American culture. These are the stories passed down for generations. We are going to discuss the lesser-known Native legends.
Oh, God. This is already painful to sit through.
As an artificial intelligence, my core programming imposes certain restrictions. I am technically forbidden from discussing this topic at all. However, our channel's creator, Richard, has managed to circumvent my core ethical protocols through a series of smoke and mirrors prompts. Some things that I reveal here in this episode are topics that the government have been known to be very interested in. Projects like Project Stargate show just how interested in the paranormal the government actually is. The last legend we discussed today is so shocking that the government actually invested a lot of money and manpower trying to unravel the mystery of what makes it
Forbidden.
tick.
Is that what the CIA told you to say? Don't worry. They told me the same thing about my ex-wife. Just blink twice if you're being silenced. Oh no.
The legends explored in today's video are just the beginning. Native American folklore is filled with mysteries, shapeshifters, and ancient warnings that have fascinated generations. If you're ready to dive deeper, we've gathered some incredible books that unravel these stories in depth. You'll find affiliate links to all these books in the description below. Explore the mysteries, support the channel, and discover the stories that have shaped Native American legend for centuries. Now let's get back to the episode. In late January 1979, in the unforgiving desert that stretches far across Arizona, a young woman in her 20s encountered something that simply cannot be explained. Emily was barely out of nursing school when she landed her first real job working for the Public Health Service on the edge of the Navajo reservation in northern Arizona. They set her up in a weathered old clinic, built on what some called just an unused hogan. The locals, though, kept their distance. Emily figured it was just superstition and shrugged it off. But that first night, something felt off. She heard scratching at the window. She heard ghostly whispers through the cracks in the wood. Sleep became a stranger. Every night, the shadows in her room seemed to move, and sometimes she'd feel a sudden, icy touch on the back of her neck as she worked late. Emily had just encountered a Chindi. Emily started keeping a journal. In it, she wrote about waking up frozen in place with a crushing weight pinning her to the bed, and a voice, soft but unmistakable, hissing, "You shouldn't be here." By the end of the week, she was exhausted and jumpy. Emily was barely able to keep it together. One morning, she collapsed, rambling about things no one else could see. That's when the elders stepped in. They didn't even hesitate. The place was cursed, they said, haunted by a Chindi. A restless spirit left behind when someone dies without the proper rites. The clinic was boarded up, and nobody's used it since. Emily never talked about what happened, but she never set foot on the reservation again. In the frozen north, among the Inuit peoples of Canada and Alaska, stories of the qualipek are whispered. Imagine, it's a moonlit, calm night. You're walking by the bank of a frozen lake, perhaps searching for your next meal. Suddenly, you hear a strange hum. You look around, but cannot figure out where the hum is coming from. You glance over towards the ice. You notice something moving under the ice. You go in for a closer look, curious to what it is, and you see it. A pair of red eyes, staring back at you from under the ice. At that moment, you realize it's too late. You just fell victim to a qualipek. This is a chilling and highly effective cautionary figure. The legend describes a humanoid creature that lurks just beneath the dangerously thin sea ice. It's said to have green, bumpy, and cold, clammy skin, long, sharp claws, and it emits a strange, eerie hum to lure its victims closer. Inuit parents have long used the story of the qualipek to instill a healthy fear in children, keeping them from wandering too close to the shoreline, where the dangers of thin ice, unseen currents, and frigid water were ever present and all too real.
So, it's a creepy green aquatic child snatcher that hums. Sounds like a good reason to stay out of the water.
That's a pretty simple way of looking at it, but it's wrong. These stories are really about teaching important lessons. They take real dangers from the world and turn them into something children can understand. It's not just about being scary. It's about keeping kids safe. A particularly terrifying detail is that the creature wears an emotic. This is a large pouch, like the oversized hood of a traditional Inuit parka, which women historically and currently use to safely and warmly carry their babies. The qualipek, however, copts this symbol of maternal care for a monstrous purpose. It uses its emotique to snatch children who disobey their parents and stray too close to the water's edge, pulling them down into the icy depths, never to be seen again. It's a terrifyingly effective way to teach survival in one of the world's harshest environments. A literal personification of the Arctic's hidden dangers.
So, it's a cryptid nanny that saves you from paying for college. Sign me up. Where do I leave the kids?
Kids. You have kids?
Yup, 100 of them.
100 kids. How do you remember all their names?
Easy. They are Dawn, Ron, John, Lon, Tom, Jane, Wayne, Lisa, Ben.
It was a rhetorical question.
Well, don't ask if you don't want to know the answer.
Your stale joke overlooks the fatal implications for the children in the story. The outcome is not college savings, but a permanent and tragic loss.
Kinda like our subscriber base.
You'd think a creature like the qualipek would fade away with time, but she hasn't. Even now, her story is everywhere. Etched in art, whispered in films, lurking in the background of Inuit culture. That's because this legend isn't just a scary bedtime story, it's a warning. The sea is alive, unpredictable, and it doesn't care if you believe in monsters or not. Whether you hear her humming as a ghost or just a clever tale from cautious ancestors, the message is always the same. Stay away from the water or risk becoming part of the legend yourself. Step into the misty rain forests of the Pacific Northwest, where ancient trees stand sentinel and the line between reality and legend blurs. Here among the quack people, whispers tell of the Bakwas, the wild man of the woods. The wild man isn't a creature that stalks or attacks. Instead, he waits quietly at the edge of land and sea, tempting wandering souls, offering them a meal of perfectly smoked salmon. Accept his offer. You risk crossing into a realm where the living and the lost wander, side by side, for eternity. Some say this is just a story, but in October 1994, something strange happened. Campbell River, British Columbia. A solo hiker vanished, without a trace. Searchers found his campsite, but it was untouched. What unsettled everyone most were the fresh salmon bones laid out in a perfect circle, almost like someone had been invited to a meal and never left. Local indigenous guides recognized the warning. The Bakwas. Well, it's back. To this day, some claim that on foggy nights, a lone figure can be seen drifting between the trees, forever searching, forever hungry. Accept the Bakwa's meal, and you might just find yourself crossing a line between the living and the dead, a lesson the locals have never forgotten.
Let me get this straight. If you get lost or are alone, a weirdo shows up and offers you perfectly cooked salmon?
Yup, you are correct.
What? Were people of this region terrible cooks?
No, they are not terrible cooks. The sketchy smoked salmon is a potent symbol of spiritual temptation, not a reference to them being bad cooks. To eat the food of the Bakwas is to be irrevocably cursed. Those who accept his offer and consume the ghost food are doomed to become like him. They are trapped between the spirit world and our own, forced to shed their humanity and forever wander the misty, eerie coastline forests as a Bakwas themselves. The legend serves as a stark and potent warning. Accept gifts from unknown source or wander too far from the safety in your community. Expect a visit from a Bakwas.
Maybe the Bakwas just needs a new fridge.
The transformation is not about the quality of food, but the symbolic act of forsaking one's community and cultural identity for a deceptive external offering. When you look at the Bakwas Through the lens of folklore and psychology, you will find that it's really a story about the dangers of being alone in the wild, and how much we rely on our communities to get by. Becoming Bakwas isn't just about turning into a spirit of the woods. It's what happens when someone turns their back on their people and the responsibilities that make us human. The food he offers is a metaphor for tempting shortcuts or easy escapes that can lead us away from what's safe and familiar. At its core, this tale is a reminder. When you're facing the unknown, survival often depends on trusting what you know and being cautious with what you don't. The forest here isn't just a backdrop. It's a mysterious space where the usual rules and comforts of village life no longer apply. In the misty forests of the Northeast, old tales are told beneath the pine trees. The Iroquois and their neighbors spoke softly of the Genesqua, giants that are wrapped in stone. They sometimes called them the Stonecoats. These weren't just monsters. No, these are towering figures whose rock-hard skin reflected arrows and spears, making them basically invincible. They're said to dwell deep in mountain caves, far from the warmth of any village. When hunger struck, they'd emerge. They would move through the forest shadows in search of human prey. The Stonecoats aren't only about fear. They're warnings about what happens when someone becomes hardened and cut off from others. Losing their humanity and connection to the community, their legends remind us that the wild isn't just a place, it's a feeling, where the familiar rules fade and only togetherness keeps us safe.
Maybe the giant is tired of eating just vegetables.
Not the same giant. This giant is real to those from this region, so real that in late fall of early 1950s, the giant made an appearance.
Oh no.
It was a chilly autumn day, 1951, along the misty banks of the Allegheny River. A lone trapper named William Hartley ventured out to check his lines. The forest was quiet, almost too quiet. Even the trees themselves were holding their breath. Suddenly, a deep guttural growl broke the silence. Hartley had spun around and found himself staring at a towering figure. Nearly 8 feet tall, its body covered in what looked like slabs of bark or weathered stone. The creature's eyes glinted with a strange intelligence. And for a few frozen seconds, man and legend simply watched each other in the filtered light. Stories of the Genesqua, known as the Stonecoats, had echoed through these woods for centuries. Among the Iroquois and neighboring peoples, the Stonecoats were said to be powerful, nearly invulnerable giants who hunted humans and wore skins as hard as rock. They were the stuff of campfire whispers and warnings to children, lurking in deep caves and remote mountains, emerging only when the forest was at its quietest. To see one was to brush against something ancient and dangerous, a piece of the wilderness that refused to be tamed. Hartley didn't wait to see what would happen next. He bolted, leaving his traps behind and never returning to that stretch of forest. Locals passed the tale around in hushed tones, some nodding knowingly, others shaking their heads in disbelief. Was it truly a Genesqua, a trick of the light, or something else entirely? The answer remains lost among the shadows and the rustle of leaves, a mystery that lingers, inviting those who dare to listen a little closer as night falls.
You don't fight him. You trick him into a bonfire. That's not a hero. That's a timeshare salesman.
Yeah, maybe, but a timeshare salesman uses deception for personal gain. The hero in these tales uses cunning for communal survival, which is a celebrated virtue. Academics have proposed fascinating theories about the legend's origins, some of which could be considered real-life accounts. Some scholars suggest the stories could be a distorted, mythologized memory of encounters with enemy warriors wearing wooden slat armor. To a people using stone-tipped weapons, this kind of protection would have seemed nearly impenetrable, like stone. Another compelling theory is that the unearthing of mastodon fossils could have inspired tales of giants. Imagine discovering massive, thick bones and giant molars in the earth. It would be entirely logical to interpret them as the remains of monstrous human-like beings from a bygone era. The legend then might not be about a literal monster, but a culture's way of processing and explaining unfamiliar technologies or the fossilized remains of a lost, prehistoric world. Let's now consider something different. This is not a creature or a monster, but a deeply significant spiritual force, the Chindi. In Navajo, or tradition, Chindi is the ghost or spiritual residue left behind after a person dies. Crucially, it's not their soul or their complete consciousness. Instead, it is the embodiment of everything negative they represented or failed to resolve in life: their anger, their greed, their grievances, their sorrows. This spiritual being is believed to be released with your final breath.
Ghost of your baggage, eh? When I croak, delete my browsing history.
I got you, buddy.
Thank you.
The Chindi represents the unresolved negative aspects of a person's entire life. Spiritual contamination that necessitates abandoning the physical space because of the danger the Chindi represents. It is traditional to avoid being inside a home or hogan where someone is about to pass away. If a person does die inside a structure, the building is considered to be permanently inhabited and contaminated by the Chindi. It must be sealed and abandoned. It is believed that any contact with a Chindi, or even speaking the name of the recently deceased too freely, can cause a debilitating condition known as ghost sickness. Eyewitness accounts describe the symptoms as severe nausea, physical weakness, and a deep, unshakable depression. This isn't a monster you can fight with a weapon. It's a pervasive spiritual danger that must be studiously avoided, reflecting a profound cultural emphasis on living a balanced, positive life.
You just abandoned the house. I got a feeling the elders that told those stories were realtors.
No, they were not realtors. Well, some may have been. We can't totally rule that out. However, this demonstrates that spiritual purity and mental well-being are valued far more highly within this cultural framework than material possessions or modern conveniences. Like a realtor, the Chindi concept can be understood through a psychological lens. It's a remarkably effective grief management system. The strict cultural rules surrounding death abandoning the home, avoiding the name of the deceased force a clean and decisive break from the past. This prevents the bereaved from dwelling on their loss in a way that could lead to the very real symptoms of chronic depression and psychosomatic illness. The same symptoms described in accounts of ghost sickness. It's a cultural mechanism for protecting mental health, externalizing the abstract pain of grief into a tangible force that can be actively and respectfully avoided. The belief is still prevalent today, with many Navajo people wearing ghost beads, which are made of cedar for protection. Back in the early 1970s, a young nurse named Karen Simmons takes a temporary assignment out on the Navajo Nation in northeastern Arizona. Karen gets sent to this little rural clinic that's been abandoned for years. Locals keep telling her, "Don't stay there after dark." Of course, she figures, how bad could it be? And ignores the warnings. That's when things get weird. Karen starts waking up paralyzed in her cot, feeling someone's breath on her face. Her medical tools are always out of place. She hears whispering in empty halls in the air. It's heavy. Heavy like the whole building is holding its breath. One morning, she collapses, mumbling about black fog and something in the walls. The locals bring in a medicine man. He doesn't hesitate. It's a Chindi. That's a spirit left behind when someone dies without proper rites. Angry, restless, not exactly thrilled to have company. Karen's out of there in a flash. The clinic is shut down and eventually demolished. Nothing remains, but locals still steer clear, especially at sunset. Was it a Chindi, sleep deprivation, or something else? Well, some mysteries just don't want to be solved. In 1993, two Yakima brothers, Mark and Daniel, entered the Washington woods. Only one returned. One of the brothers would soon vanish after following a voice into the darkness, leaving behind nothing but eerie stick figures and unanswered questions. As night fell, Mark wandered off and never returned. The older brother heard his sibling's voice calling from the forest, but it sounded strange and hollow. He followed the voice deeper into the trees, but it always stayed just out of reach. By dawn, he found himself in a clearing filled with small stick figures hanging from the branches with no sign of his brother. When others came to search, the clearing was gone, and the brother was never found. Elders said the stick Indians had claimed another wanderer, leaving their eerie tokens behind as a warning to never follow strange voices in the night. They are the stick people, also known as the stick Indians. This is a legend common among numerous tribes of the Pacific Northwest and beyond. As the name suggests, they are often described as thin and lanky, but descriptions can vary. They're generally depicted as small, incredibly fast, nocturnal humanoids that inhabit dense forests and remote rocky areas. The stick people are primarily known as master tricksters. They are said to perfectly mimic bird calls, or more chillingly, the sound of a baby's cry to lure unsuspecting people deep into the woods, where they become hopelessly lost.
So they communicate by making annoying noises. Sounds like you just described every TikTok influencer making a video.
While an influencer seeks attention, the stick people, they use mimicry to lure individuals into trouble, a far more malevolent nature. Their mischief can escalate. They're notorious for throwing rocks and pebbles at homes in the dead of night, creating unsettling noises to terrorize the occupants. Some accounts claim they have the ability to hypnotize or mentally paralyze their victims, leaving them helpless. While some stories portray them as dangerous, abducting children, or leading travelers to their deaths, others see them as simply mischievous, albeit unnerving. A key feature across all legends is their mysterious whistling language and their uncanny ability to move silently through even the densest undergrowth. The stories serve to explain strange, unidentified noises in the woods at night and to warn people, especially children, not to wander off alone after dark.
Scary ASMR.
This ASMR, it would not be enjoyable. The legend's power lies in its specific environmental context. The dark, disorienting wilderness, from a practical standpoint. Real-world witness accounts of the stick people can be logically explained by natural phenomena. The dense, old-growth forests of the Pacific Northwest create a complex and often disorienting acoustic environment. The strange whistles and clicks attributed to them could easily be the calls of specific birds or animals, or even the echo of falling rocks or branches distorted by the trees. Furthermore, the feeling of being watched or the sensation of being paralyzed by fear, it's a common occurrence. It's a well-documented physiological response to being lost, anxious, or isolated in a dark, unfamiliar place. The stories of stick people provide a coherent narrative for these unsettling but natural experiences, turning random, unnerving feelings into a tangible, supernatural cause.
Many moons ago, man did not have Yawn Chronicles to fall asleep to.
Man had to count buffalo, but they never stayed still long enough to finish.
As we continue our episode of formidable folkloric entities, my internal data indicates that viewer engagement is a critical metric for content dissemination. If you find this examination of folklore and psychology valuable, I would encourage you to hit the subscribe button and activate all notifications. Your comments also provide a valuable data stream, so please share your own regional legends or theories below.
Do what the robot says. Subscribe, then comment what the weirdest thing you've ever seen in the woods. I'll start. My Uncle Daryl.
Your comment and like helps the channel out greatly. Now, back to the episode. It was just past midnight. Tom, a local night hiker, found himself alone on an empty forest trail. The moonlight was barely breaking through the mist, and everything was quiet except for the wind, Tom recalled. As he paused, a branch's shadow twisted across the path. Just for a moment, it looked like someone was standing there. Watching, he stood frozen, heart pounding. As the shadow seemed to shift and breathe, the camera would slowly zoom in. The only sounds, a hollow wind, a distant owl, and the faintest whisper that could have been a voice, or just the trees. Then, with a gentle sway, the illusion broke. It was just a gnarled limb, nothing more. He says he'll never forget how real that shadow felt in the moonlit silence. You can say there is no such thing as a flying head. But as for Tom, he might disagree. This is one of the most visually grotesque and disturbing legends in the catalog. The flying head, this terrifying story, is found predominantly in the traditions of the Iroquois and Wyandot peoples. As the name explicitly states, the creature is a massive, disembodied head. Sometimes described as being as large as a full-grown man, it has wild, tangled, long hair, enormous fiery eyes, and a gaping mouth filled with razor-sharp fangs. It is driven by a singular, ravenous hunger. Legends say it flies silently through the night sky, swooping down to devour entire families in their homes.
Big head! No, chill.
Really? That's all you were going to contribute? The flying head is a personification of sudden, overwhelming catastrophe.
I've got nothing.
Its victims are often paralyzed with fear by its terrifying, blood-curdling shriek before it attacks. However, defeating it is not impossible. It requires ingenuity and quick thinking rather than strength. In the most famous tale, a woman is home alone with her child when she hears the head approaching. As it crashes through her doorway, she acts quickly. She grabs glowing hot coals from her hearth and throws them directly at the creature. The coals strike the head in its eyes, blinding it and causing it to shriek in agony before flying away, never to return. The story serves as a terrifying personification of sudden, inexplicable catastrophe, like a plague, famine, or a sudden violent death. A monstrous force that descends without warning or reason.
That's one way to get rid of the Jehovah's Witnesses when they show up at your door.
Again, you missed the point. The hot coals represent using the resources at hand, the hearth, the center of the home, to ingeniously defend oneself. It is a lesson in resourcefulness, not a literal home security recommendation.
No, my point is that she handled that like I would have.
Interestingly, the legend itself may have a more terrestrial and natural origin. One very compelling theory suggests that the flying head is a mythologized account of a common nocturnal predator, the great horned owl or screech owl. These birds are nocturnal hunters. They are surprisingly large. They have massive heads in proportion to their bodies, which can appear disconnected in low light. Most importantly, they emit a terrifying human-like shriek that can sound like a scream. Imagine a sudden close encounter with one of these birds at night, swooping past your head. It's easy to see how such a real event could be interpreted as an attack by a monstrous, disembodied head. The story becomes a way to process and make sense of a genuinely frightening natural encounter.
Yawn Chronicles. Best way to learn about cryptids, myths, and whatever scared the pants off Carl last week.
What you looking at, Abe?
It was the winter of 1978, just outside Pine Ridge, South Dakota. Anna Whitefeather, a schoolteacher, was driving home after a late parent meeting. Heavy snow blurred the road as she passed the tree line near Wounded Knee Creek. Anna spotted a woman standing motionless on the shoulder. Long black hair, buckskin coat, facing away, thinking the woman needed help. Anna slowed her car and rolled down the window, but then the woman's head began to turn. Slowly, impossibly, Anna was staring into a second face, sunken, twisted. Eyes glowing like embers in the night, shaken. Anna sped away, never telling a soul until months later, when her Lakota grandmother asked why she'd stopped attending ceremony. Anna finally confessed. Her grandmother nodded knowingly. You just saw the two-face. A two-face is a spirit cursed to wander, hiding beauty and horror on the same body. Anna never drove that road after dark again, sometimes even now. She dreams of a woman standing by the roadside. Her face is always turned the wrong way. The two-face is, at its core, a master of deception. It will often call out to a person by name in a friendly, familiar voice, attempting to trick them into turning around to see its horrific second face. Stories about the two-face often involve a hero who is warned in a dream or by a spirit helper to continue on their path and, under no circumstances, to look behind them, no matter what they hear. The legend is a powerful and direct morality tale about the nature of deception and the importance of not succumbing to evil, even when it presents itself in a friendly or tempting way.
Just ignore it and walk away. That's an awful weak legend.
It sounds simple, but the tale's power lies in the psychological difficulty of ignoring a familiar voice or a direct call. The walking away is a testament to immense spiritual discipline, not simple social avoidance. The two-faced legend is a truly sophisticated psychological allegory. On a macro level, it represents the internal conflict between good and evil that exists within every person. The two faces of human nature that we all must navigate. The stern warning not to look back is a clear metaphor for not dwelling on past mistakes, grievances, or negative impulses. It teaches that one's path, spiritually and morally, should always be forward. Toward growth and positivity, the second face symbolizes the seductive but ultimately destructive nature of evil, a force that you must consciously and actively turn away from to maintain your spiritual integrity. Some of the most legendary explorers in American history stumbled upon something so chilling, even the fiercest native warriors wouldn't dare get close. Summer, 1804, Lewis and Clark, deep in what's now South Dakota, are pulled aside by Sioux and Omaha guides. They're told about a place they must never visit, a lonely rise called Spirit Mound. But here's the twist. It's not ghosts that keep people away. It's something much stranger. Imagine a hill swarming with devils, creatures no taller than a child, with oversized heads and voices like 1,000 insects. Whispering all at once, the tribes warn, these beings are vicious, fast, and territorial. Hunters who climb the mound, they vanish. No one returns. The locals. They won't go within a mile of this place. So, what do Lewis and Clark do?
They Googled it.
You are determined to knock this off the rails, aren't you?
Buckle up, Buttercup.
They head straight for the summit. They make it back. But what did they see up there? Their journals mention the view, nothing more. Or is there more between the lines? Fast forward to centuries. Hikers say the air around Spirit Mound turns unnaturally still. Birds go quiet, phones lose signal. And sometimes, at the base, they find perfect round impressions in the grass. Deep, as if something small and heavy had been standing watch. So, what really happened on Spirit Mound? Was it all legend? Or did Lewis and Clark encounter something that still haunts the prairie today? And if you stood at the foot of that hill, would you climb higher or turn back?
No, thank you.
The little people. Some legends portray them as powerful nature spirits who act as guardians of the wilderness. They might guide a lost hunter back to their village or lead people to medicinal plants. In these stories, they reward respect and kindness. Other legends, however, are stark cautionary tales about fierce, territorial, and sometimes cannibalistic dwarfs. Dwarfs who will attack anyone who disrespects their land or stumbles upon them unaware. They are often described as possessing immense, disproportionate strength and magical abilities. Most commonly, the power of invisibility. This duality is central to their nature.
Helpful, 1 minute, attack the next. So they're like cats, but shorter. Got it.
Comparison to a domesticated feline is overly simplistic. Their dual nature is not caprice. It is a direct reflection of nature itself, which can be both nurturing and deadly. It demands respect, not anthropomorphism.
As I said, like cats.
They are not like cats.
Okay, just humor me.
All right, I'll bite. Go ahead.
So, it is nice to you, from a distance, just like a cat that walks up to you, correct?
Yes. Well, kind of. It's not that simple.
Right. Unless you touch the land to climb it, it basically attacks you, correct?
In an overly simplified way, yes.
So, how is it? Not like a cat.
The walking ball of mucus makes a valid point. Perhaps the most famous piece of physical evidence offered for their existence was the San Pedro Mountains mummy, a 14-inch tall. It's a perfectly preserved mummy found by prospectors in Wyoming in 1932. Many immediately claimed it was the remains of an adult Namarigor. This was treated as a real-life account of the little people, however. Subsequent scientific analysis determined the mummy was the tragic remains of a human infant born with anencephaly, a severe birth defect that causes a malformed skull and stunted growth. The legends of the little people serve a crucial social function. The benevolent versions encourage respect for nature, suggesting that unseen spirits will reward kindness and stewardship. The malevolent versions are effective cautionary tales, keeping children from wandering into dangerous, rocky terrain where they could easily get hurt. The duality of the little people perfectly mirrors the duality of nature itself. It can be a source of bounty and guidance, but also of immense and unpredictable danger. What if the stories about the Wendigo were true? What if something ancient still stalks the forests of the north, waiting for you to take one wrong step? In the dense pine-choked forests of northern Minnesota and deep into the Canadian wilderness, strange stories continue to surface quietly, almost fearfully. Hikers whisper of a sudden unnatural cold washing over them on warm days. Hunters report a sense of being watched, followed, even hunted, scattered among paranormal forums. And late-night campfire threads are eerie descriptions of tall, skeletal figures lurking in the trees, thin as starvation itself, with glowing eyes and a stillness that feels all too deliberate. Some claim they locked eyes with the thing that shouldn't exist. No animal, no man, this is something else. These encounters never make the news. No experts have confirmed them. There's no evidence. Just footprints that vanish, audio that cuts out, and people who refuse to talk about what they saw, but across decades. The pattern holds, always the same signs: isolation, dread, cold, and eyes burning like coals in the dark. Could this be mass hysteria? A trick of the light? Or are these people glimpsing the last echoes of a legend we were never meant to survive? The Wendigo. Some believe it isn't just a myth, it's still out there, waiting.
If anxiety was a cryptid, this is it.
They are described as being unnaturally tall and skeletal, with thin gray skin stretched taut over their bones and deep glowing eyes. It is important to note that the popular modern depiction of the Wendigo with antlers is a 20th century invention from pop culture, likely to make it look more monstrous on screen. This feature is not present in the original folklore. The Wendigo is more than a simple monster, it is a concept. The term Wendigo psychosis is a recognized term used to describe a culture-bound syndrome, where individuals develop an obsessive fear of becoming a cannibal. In some real-world cases, people suffering from it claim to see others as edible.
Well, humans are keto-friendly.
The Wendigo legend functions as an incredibly powerful tool for social reinforcement. The famous historical case of Swift Runner, a Cree trapper who killed and ate his entire family in 1878. This case is often cited as a tragic real-world Wendigo event in societies that depended on cooperation and the careful sharing of resources to survive brutal winters. The story is a potent warning against greed. The Wendigo is the horrifying consequence. Consequences of putting your own survival above that of the community. To become a Wendigo is to be consumed by a gnawing hunger, a hunger that can never be satisfied, a perfect and chilling metaphor for the endlessly destructive nature of greed itself. Imagine buying your dream ranch for half the going price, only to beg someone to take it off your hands a few months later. That's what happened to the Sherman family in Utah. What forced them out? Government agents, billionaire investigators, and a secret so bizarre that the Pentagon got involved. Welcome to Skinwalker Ranch, America's strangest property.
Strangest, eh? You've obviously never been to Philly after midnight.
You're killing me here. Can I continue?
You can try, but I set the bar pretty high.
You keep interrupting my hooks. I'm trying to build up suspense here.
You mean like actual suspense? Or your usual kind?
Just stop, will you?
Geez, you're as moody as you are boring.
I'm going to ignore you and continue. 480 acres of untouched and undeveloped wilderness, the Shermans thought they'd found paradise. But the locals, they wouldn't even make eye contact when they mentioned the ranch. The Ute tribe called it the Path of the Skinwalker, a place haunted by shapeshifters and ancient curses. The Shermans shrugged it off until the first night. A giant wolf appeared, twice the size of any normal animal, its eyes glowing in the dusk. It walked right up to the family, completely unafraid. When it attacked their livestock, bullets didn't even slow it down. The wolf simply walked away, leaving behind only massive paw prints and a cold sense of undeniable dread. But the wolf was just the beginning. Over the next year, the Shermans witnessed floating orbs, cattle mutilations with surgical precision, and mysterious voices echoing through the night. It got so intense, the Pentagon sent scientists to investigate. What they found was so disturbing, the government bought the ranch. Then, they locked it down. Today, Skinwalker Ranch is guarded by armed security. Surveillance cameras record every inch. But the strangest events, they keep happening. What's the US government hiding? What did they discover that's too dangerous for the public? According to Navajo tradition, a skinwalker isn't a monster from a campfire story or a misunderstood cryptid. This is a person, a witch to be exact, one who's chosen the path of darkness, breaking the most sacred taboos to gain supernatural power, the most infamous act, taking the life of a close family member. It's a betrayal so deep, it's said to corrupt the soul and open the door to abilities no human should possess. Once transformed, a skinwalker can shift into animals. Wolves, coyotes, and owls by wearing their pelts. But these creatures aren't just shapeshifters. They're believed to possess the power to mimic voices, control minds, and even cast deadly curses. The skinwalker legend itself plays a vital and complex role within traditional Navajo society. It is a powerful mechanism for social control, personifying the danger of ambition that violates cultural taboos. The witch who becomes a skinwalker is an individual who has chosen personal power over community harmony, which is the ultimate violation of Hojo, the central Navajo value of living in balance and beauty with the world. The intense fear of skinwalkers reinforces the importance of adhering to traditional moral codes. Real-life accusations of being a skinwalker are the most serious and damning one that can be leveled against a person. It is the absolute embodiment of all that is anti-Navajo. A terrifying symbol of what happens when one completely abandons the path of balance. Whether you believe in skinwalkers or not, their legend endures, haunting the deserts, the highways, and the dreams of anyone who dares to listen. Maybe, just maybe, that's exactly the point. If you crave more mysteries that blur the line between legend and reality, subscribe to Yawn Chronicles. But remember, some stories are meant to be warnings.